a suit and tie and get your hair cut way up high. Get yourself a lawyer, son. You're gonna need a real good one.
The lawyer is in, so I hope you'll call into 1300 222 774. David Whiting, good morning to you.
Good morning.
How'd you go without me?
I missed you terribly.
There you go.
Absolutely, as did everybody else.
Correct answer.
Yeah, right.
I mean, there was a moment's hesitation there, but you pulled it out of the fire.
No, absolutely.
So
I
well
know
done.
exactly what to say.
Homework.
I did. I had a caller last week, Andrew from Malvern, and his question was about health records that weren't required by the health provider. So he rings the Red Cross about becoming a donor, and they get some information from him, and they conclude because of, I think it was a travel trip, he was unable to be a donor, and he then asked them to delete his health information, which is what it is, and they said, we're really very sorry, we can't. And so it was a look at the Privacy Act, the Health Records Act and the health privacy provisions,
Right.
and the answer is they can't delete the information.
They're not allowed to?
They're not they're allowed to after 7 years. So after 7 years after they last provide him with a service, and let's call the telephone conversation a service,
Yeah.
at that point they're allowed to delete it. Allowed to correct it at any time, but allowed to delete it after 7 years, and even then they've actually got to specify what they've deleted.
You mean they have to detail the thing that they're deleting?
I don't know the degree of detail, but
Seem to defeat the purpose of deleting.
And that would apply to every health provider, is that you've got to keep the records until 7 years after the provision of the last service.
Can he live with that, our caller?
No, he just simply wanted it gone. If I'm not going to be a donor,
Right.
I don't want you to have my records anymore.
Yeah, but what if he tried to turn up a few years later and go, I'd like to be a donor? You know?
I think, Virginia, all of our callers are of the highest possible integrity, and
You're
it
right.
wouldn't happen.
What am I possibly suggesting?
Absolutely. ABC listener, how could you say that?
Exactly. 1300 222 774. If you have a legal problem, let's see if David can help you. Mark in Abbotsford, go right ahead. What's going on?
Hi. I've got an issue with a large property developer who we did a job for in the first week of March in Parramatta in New South Wales during the period that Sydney was experiencing extreme wet weather.
Yeah.
The job was done inside in a new building in Parramatta, and we installed a very large painting in 8 panels, canvas panels. We believe it's the largest painting that's been installed in the Southern Hemisphere.
Wow. Can you give us a sense of the dimensions? How big?
So it ended up 10 metres by 10 metres inside.
Wow.
So it's 8 pyramids.
How do you get that up on a wall? What do you do?
Oh, you have these lifts called spider lifts, which the operators who are handling the panels ride on, and we winch it with ropes off hooks in the ceiling.
So how high up is the ceiling, Mark, if the wall is 10 metres, if there's room to put a painting 10 metres high on a wall?
The wall's 15 metres high, so
Okay.
there was probably about a metre below the ceiling. The painting ends up.
So, Mark, what's the problem?
Well, they're refusing to pay our invoice because they believe there's a defect, and we believe the only defect, what they're claiming is a defect is one of the panels of the painting. The canvas has expanded and gone loose,
Yes.
and because of the timing of the installation being so humid,
Oh, yeah.
and then the building it's been put into unbeknown to us is not air conditioned because it's still a building site.
Yes.
So there's no atmosphere control at all.
So, Mark, tell me, you're based in Victoria?
Yeah, we're based in Victoria.
Is there a contract or a written agreement between you and the person you installed the works for?
There's only a purchase order from them that has conditions on it.
And does it say, because I tend to think you could probably bring that proceeding in Victoria. So where did you get the painting? Where did the painting come from here, or was it you were simply
It came from here. It was painted by an artist who was commissioned to paint it in Melbourne. And we've done
Mark,
7
if you were bringing the proceeding in, let's say you were doing an installation in the City of Melbourne, you would be able to bring a claim for your unpaid fee in VCAT. I don't know what the situation is in New South Wales, but I would be surprised if you couldn't bring such a proceeding. So I'll give you that answer next week. There's also a piece of legislation called the Building Security of Payment Act, which may not apply in your case. But look, in Victoria you could bring it in VCAT. Why don't I let you know next week whether you can commence a proceeding here at maximum inconvenience? The way you've described it to me, you've done absolutely nothing wrong. If it required a controlled temperature, that wasn't up to you to provide because you didn't control the building.
Can I just ask how much the invoice is?
Sorry, $55,000.
Wow. Yeah, I would.
And hang on. And they're saying they won't pay a cent of it.
No, and also it's for 2 parts. The job was in 2 parts. There was another artwork that had been previously installed by another installer, which had been installed unsatisfactorily, not because there was looseness, there was just big gaps in the panels and that. We reinstalled that on the same weekend.
Right.
And they won't pay us for that either until...
Mark, my view is you go for it. I can't see that there's a defence on anything that you've told me. But wait till next week and I'll tell you if you can bring the proceedings. I don't think you could do the rehanging because that was a deal that you struck in New South Wales from the way you've described it. But the $55,000 purchase order, you may be able to bring the proceedings here.
Well, does the purchase order cover the rectifying the other problem of the other?
Yeah.
It does.
Okay, then I'll let you know if you can bring
Covers
it here.
both. Okay.
And if it's in New South Wales, I'll tell you what the process is.
That's amazing. I mean, that's... And no one will sort of take your call and have a reasonable chat about it because, from my understanding of paintings anyway, the loosening of the canvas has got nothing to do with the hanger. No one will talk to you about it, Mark?
No, they just want us to, not pay us until we go and rectify it at our own cost. And it can be tightened. There's mechanisms in the stretches that the canvas is stretched on to tighten it again, but we have to pull 4 of the panels off to get to this bottom one, and that's like hiring the lifts again.
Yeah,
it's probably
Did you take the paintings to Sydney, Mark?
No.
So they were on site, you hung them and you left?
Yeah, they arrived while we were on site. It wasn't part of our job.
But your job was, there's no argument that you had an obligation to bring them from Melbourne and look after them and hang them. Your job, you were paid to hang them. I just don't see the argument.
Okay.
Thank you, Mark.
Mark, thank you. Stay tuned. We're going to have a report back to you next week, so that's homework for us. And David will have some further advice next week at 10 a.m. Tuesday. Nice to hear from you. Thank you. Ian in Ashbourne, go right ahead.
Oh, hi, Virginia, isn't it? And David?
It's
Good
definitely
morning.
Virginia. Yep.
Yes. I didn't hear before, but anyway, look, mine's a travel issue, one of probably hundreds. I booked to go over to South Africa in August 2020 and the flights were cancelled by the airline because of COVID. The travel agent I dealt with is based overseas. They alerted me that the flights were cancelled, and it said you might have to wait 2 or 3 months for a refund. Time passed. I got back to them. They said, oh, yeah, we're still pursuing it. And eventually they said, no, you can't get a refund, but the airline will give you a credit.
And did you pay by credit card?
Yes.
Then why not dispute the credit transaction with the credit card provider on the basis that the flight was cancelled and therefore you shouldn't have to pay?
Given it's 2 years ago, is that still a valid ploy?
It depends on whether you paid by Visa or Master. The card, they have different time constraints within which to bring the claim. So I would start there. And you'd also need to look and see whether your agreement was with the travel agent or the airline. But you've engaged with a travel agent overseas.
Yes, I didn't realise when I did it that they were based overseas.
And therein lies part of your problem.
I know.
So even if you were able to bring a claim at VCAT, you've still got to register the judgment, send it overseas, and then try and enforce it overseas.
VCAT won't even look at it because they say it's outside their jurisdiction.
Okay,
and
on the basis it's a contract made outside Victoria. Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
But the airline, acknowledges that I've got a flight credit there, but they won't talk to me until they're authorised by the travel agent, and that's the problem, because the travel agent just will not respond. They keep promising to, but they don't.
Yeah.
Talk to Consumer Affairs.
What's the number for Consumer Affairs?
Or the ACCC.
ACCC, yeah. It's been
but I would
now.
probably go to Consumer Affairs.
All right, good luck. Naomi in Blackburn South, go ahead.
Good morning, Virginia and David. I'm an owner-occupier of an apartment in Melbourne.
Mm-hmm.
I have water coming through into my living space from the above apartment, most likely their balcony.
In what way? Like, does it pour in or drip in or?
I've got two...
Depends on how much rain you've got, I think.
I want a description.
It does. So I've got a crack in my ceiling, and it comes out of there. Heavy rain, I might get 3, 4, 5 litres, and it also comes out my range hood, and sometimes I can get
on your range hood, on your stove.
Yeah, sometimes get 10 plus litres coming out of there.
Oh wow! So you need a lot of buckets then, Naomi.
I've invested
heavily. Naomi,
why are we laughing?
Naomi, it depends on where the water's coming
funny.
from. I know it's coming from above you.
Yeah.
And the general problem. So I can give you a couple of stories. The first one, the apartment above the membrane under the shower gave way, and water came through and damaged the property underneath. And in that case, the responsibility was clearly the responsibility of the person in the apartment above. The second one, which I had a look at more recently, was there was actually a pipe in the ceiling above the apartment, and while there were some water issues in the apartment above, the water was coming from a pipe that belonged to the owners' corporation. So in one, it was the responsibility of the person above, and in the second, it was the responsibility of the owners' corp.
So how does Naomi establish whose is whose?
So I can help with a bit of information.
Okay.
We know that the water's coming. We've had some investigative works. We know it's coming from the balcony above, and it's poorly laid. It goes to the wrong drain. There's breaks in the balcony, and we think there's also no waterproofing in the balcony above.
Okay, then on that basis, it's an action against, and I assume that the balcony is part of the apartment above?
Correct.
Then your action is at VCAT under the Water Act. It's a claim under Section 16 of the Water Act for damage caused to your property.
Yeah.
Now, you probably would need an expert's report that would, you may already have the guts of an expert's report to establish exactly what the source of the water is, and then it becomes your neighbour's problem. And this is an unusual jurisdiction at VCAT because it involves the payment of legal fees. So that's what I would be paying. It's not... VCAT's normally a user pays system, but because this is a proceeding under the Water Act, costs follow the event.
Okay, all right. Good luck, Naomi. I hope that's helpful. Adrian in Maidstone, go ahead.
Oh, g'day. How are you guys?
Good, thanks.
That's good. All right, to the chase. I'm a truck driver, and I pick up big bins on the back of my truck.
Mm-hmm.
One morning, I pulled over for a coffee, and as I was leaving, I didn't realise how close I'd parked to these shops. As I was leaving, the corner of my bin touched the awning of a shop.
Yep.
And there was an aluminium sign on the awning, and it touched it just enough to scrape that sign, about a metre of it, and curl it up and drop it onto the ground. So it was just a sign.
So you knocked it down,
and I knocked it down. I realised what had happened. I got out, I cleaned it up. I called the number on the shop front.
Yes.
And I handed over my details. And he said, okay, calm down, don't worry about it. They'll fix it up. They know that this has happened so many times before. 2 weeks later, I got a phone call. I think it was from an insurance company.
Yes.
I got a phone call. I gave some more details, email address. I didn't hear anything else. So the incident happened in September last year, early.
Yep.
And then 2 weeks later, I got a phone call. Last week, and I noticed, because I drive past this in North Melbourne every day,
Yep.
that they've redone the whole awning, which spans 3 shop fronts. I've pulled off a sign, about a metre of a sign.
Yes.
Not even that, which didn't even cover a third of the first shop front.
Yep.
They've redone the whole thing.
Yep.
It looked like it took them a few days, and I can see why, because I've been invoiced. Please pay within 14 days, $16,500.
Yes.
For roof plumbing, for traffic control, for hiring car spaces, so they could block them out.
The question, Adrian, is what was the cost of repairs? Now, and it may be that you did more damage than you thought, but why would what you're looking for, Adrian, is an engineer's report that says the work they did was necessary as a consequence of what you did.
No, well, there was another attachment in the email. There were a bunch of reports in there, and one of them says that it was accepted that there was damage to a sign on the front, which hit the metal cladding.
Yes.
And pulled down part of a sign. And that the damage caused by the truck was superficial and not structural.
That then is your answer to your question. You'd go back to them and say superficial damage, maybe a couple of grand for the sign writer and the new sign and the traffic control that goes with it. So their own material says that you don't owe them $16,000.
So if Adrian wants to have that, start that as a conversation, and he's told no, pay up, what's the next step?
Then somebody needs to go to the magistrate's court, and it needs to be the other people.
Oh,
not
right,
Adrian.
okay.
So it's not a VCAT matter because it's an action for damages, not a debt. And your answer would be that can I have a quote for the replacement? Sorry, why would you not go and talk to a sign writer and get a quote for the cost of the replacement of the sign?
And here's the thing. It's taken them 9 months to fix it.
Yes.
And they fixed it a week and a half before the shop tenant was moving out because their lease expired.
Yes.
So there's and they've listed on the invoice $6,500 for signage, but it's just blank. It's just a blank. There's no signage.
Adrian, you need to go and get someone else to give. In order for you to have an argument with the insurer, you need to get it. You need someone else to price it.
All right.
And just the sign.
Just the sign. It's superficial damage. There might be a little bit of tidy up and some paint work, but it's superficial damage. But you need you're a truck driver, not a sign writer. I'm a lawyer, not a sign writer. I don't know what it would cost to fix. You need to have a proper discussion. You need to get an estimate of what it would cost to do.
Okay, well, good luck, and we hope you manage to go well with that. Dana in Melton, what's going on, Dana?
Well, I have a neighbour who's running. I live on a couple of acres. Our estate is all 1 to 2 acres, and my neighbour's running his skip business next door. And it's full of trucks, tractors. He dumps all the rubbish in his backyard, which runs along my drive.
Mm-hmm.
There's trucks going in and out, mud on the street. We live in a court. And of course, residential, he shouldn't be having a business running next door. So now on the other side of me as well, the other neighbour has leased out his land, and he's also got 5 trucks there.
Oh, wow. Dana, I would start with Melton Shire Council. And,
I've been fighting with them for 10 years. This has been going on since 2013.
You need some assistance to look at the planning scheme, and it will depend upon what the planning scheme says about authorised use, what you can and can't do.
The council has told me that, no, it's illegal, and they said they're taking legal action, but since 2013. Now I've got rats under my house.
Dana,
Yes.
When did they tell you they were taking legal action?
About a year ago.
Okay, so not in 2013.
No.
No. Okay, so it's really about the last 12 months, and the last 12 months have been very interesting for all of us. If you don't think that the council is working fast enough, then talk to the Ombudsman.
I spoke to the Ombudsman. They took their letter and their word for what's going on. So.
Then, Dana, what you need to do is commence proceedings against your neighbour for a nuisance. But I'm trying to get you to the point where you get some result without you dipping deeply into your pocket but I would suggest that on what you've told me, you would be able to bring a proceeding against your neighbour to restrain a continuing nuisance in relation to the noise, the waste and the vermin.
Is there anything I can do about the council? Because they're the ones that have been very slack.
Then you take that up with the Ombudsman. Or what you might do, have you spoken to your local councillor?
Yeah, they're
And
not
that's not
interested.
working either, all right?
They're not interested. I've spoken to everybody I can think of.
Then where you get to is that it's up, if they're not moving as fast as you want them to, it's up to you to commence your own proceedings. I would be trying to get a sit-down meeting with your councillor and probably some videos of the site. Google Earth will give you some photographs which show what's going on the site. You might find some ads for his business which would show that he's conducting a business in a residential area.
Yeah.
That's the way you construct your argument.
Dana, is there anyone in your life who can help you and assist you do that? Like a relative or a friend or a neighbour?
The children are busy. I don't really like to press them.
Yeah, no, and it's a hard thing to try and get done on your own. Dana, I hope, is that advice useful to you? Can you at least start that conversation?
Yeah, I will. Thank you.
Okay.
Oh, it sounds like a terrible and a long-running situation that Dana's been going through as well.
10 years, yes.
Yeah, no, terrible. Jackie in Baldwin, go ahead, Jackie.
Oh, Jackie.
Oh, hello. Can you hear me?
Yeah,
Yes.
We can hear you. Go ahead.
Hi, Virginia David. We've got a 3-story townhouse that we were away for the weekend in March, and we came home on the Monday morning, and it's a 3-story. The ground floor and the basement had been totally flooded with sewage.
Yes. Happened to a friend of mine in a unit in St Kilda Road.
Yes, it's horrific.
And when he went to the council to get a copy of the plans, the page wasn't around. Anyway, Jackie?
Okay.
Yes? So I would suggest that you have a look at the planning permit which allowed the construction of the buildings, and what you're interested in looking at, and you can go to the council for these documents. You want a copy of the conditions that were imposed upon the developer at the time of construction. Now, that would be your Yarra Valley Water, I think. They will have imposed some conditions on the development, some of which may relate to this issue.
Okay.
And that's where I'd start before I looked at apportioning blame between the developer, the plumber and the water authority.
So the Owners Corp has, they put us up in a hotel. We've got partial settlement with the contents insurer. I was actually really just wondering if the water authority is liable for any damages.
The answer is they might be, but it depends to a large extent upon the conditions they imposed on the developer at the time of permitting the construction. Right, now, if they required that certain sewage blowback works were put in place and they weren't, then that's not the water authority, because the water authority then gets a certificate from the plumber that says that work's been done.
Yeah, right.
Okay.
Thank you, Jackie.
Thank you very much.
Hope that's helpful, Jackie. Some tricky problems today and a bit of homework for next week as well.
Indeed.
David, thanks so much. David Whiting there, who's always here to help you with legal problems.